Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has announced that he will pay a reward up to $1 million if anyone comes forward with allegations of election fraud, any reports of voter fraud. And so according to CBS News, whistleblowers and tipsters should turn over their evidence to local law enforcement. Anyone who provides information, and this is a statement from Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, anyone who provides information that leads to an arrest and final conviction of voter fraud will be paid a minimum of $25,000. Now the wording is important there because in order for you to collect any money in the form of a reward, the individual that you're accusing of voter fraud would have to be convicted of voter fraud. And so far, what we've noticed from the Trump campaign and other Republicans who have been alleging widespread voter fraud is that they have yet to provide any substantial evidence indicating that fraud actually took place. And federal courts have been shooting down the Trump campaign and their lawsuits because their lawsuits are nonsense. And so, what do you think the outcome of this would be, John?
The outcome of offering up $1 million for that sort of thing? Mm-hmm. Knowing Republicans and how those sorts of things work, I don't think anyone's ever getting that money, no matter what they find.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. Let me give you some more from Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's statement. He says, I support President Trump's efforts to identify voter fraud in the presidential election and his commitment to making sure that every legal vote is counted and every legal vote is disqualified. President Trump's pursuit of voter fraud is not only essential to determine the outcome of this election, it is essential to maintain our democracy and restore faith in future elections. So let me just remind you all that Joe Biden won the popular vote to the tune of 5 million people who cast their ballots for Joe Biden over Donald Trump. I give you that number because in order for the election results to flip to Trump's advantage, you would need to prove literally widespread voter fraud in several states. This isn't a 2000 situation where there's a big question mark regarding the state of Florida. We're talking about key battleground states, many of which the Trump campaign has already filed lawsuits against. And many of those cases have already been shot down by federal judges because again, they have failed to provide any evidence to the accusations that they're making. So I think what's likely to happen is we're gonna see all sorts of false allegations against people who did absolutely nothing wrong, and they're gonna have to go through what you would expect they'd go through with right-wing media lunatics accusing innocent people of doing something wrong when they really haven't done anything wrong. Just today, Donald Trump tweeted a video of people, officials, literally collecting ballots from ballot drop-off boxes.
Ballots? I thought they collected them all. I just want to document.
No, we're still collecting.
How much? Wait, but how come they already called the state?
Because these are mail-in ballots.
Are there a ton in there?
Yeah.
All right, are you collecting from a lot of places? Yeah. All right, I'll just document. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Are you guys official election guys? All right, and let me just ask you one thing. Where do you guys take them?
Election center. That's it.
Is that in the government building?
LA County.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there a lot more in there?
6 feet, please.
Okay. Thank you guys. I just want to see because they called our state so
6 feet,
quickly.
please.
I know, I am.
You don't have a mask either.
Oh yeah, sorry.
But how are the ballots supposed to get collected? I mean, I don't really understand.
Well, the stork comes and I don't know. Yeah, so JR and I talked about this a little bit on the damage report, and generally the sorts of things you offer $1 million for documented proof for are things like Loch Ness monsters and Yetis. So they're things that need to be proven because we have no proof. And they're saying there's tons of proof everywhere. Then why are you offering $1 million? You just have money to spare? If I donated his campaign, I want a little bit of that money back because apparently he has too much money. But it's not the case. If there was actual widespread voter fraud, that would be a bad thing. and we might suspect it if there was evidence of it. But the evidence they are pointing to generally is the trend that the advantage went to Joe Biden after Election Day. And we as a nation had only been preparing for that and known that it was gonna happen for months at that point. And Trump continued to do everything you would do if you wanted to create that shift by telling your voters to not vote by mail. And so we as a country need to engage in a months-long delusion, basically the search for Amelia Earhart's plane effectively, because they don't accept the thing everybody was talking about for literally months leading up to the election.
Yeah, and later in the show, there will be some stories that demonstrate the financial incentives tied to Donald Trump refusing to accept the outcome of the election publicly. So he might very well accept the outcome of the election internally, even though he absolutely hates it. But he is using this very public battle to essentially fundraise, and none of that money is actually going to the legal battle to recount votes in certain states. It's all nonsense. It's all part of his grift, and it's actually pretty disgusting. But I do want to provide some evidence of how our electoral system is set up pretty well in order to prevent voter fraud. In fact, in the next video, you'll see a Trump supporter, a Trump voter, who tried to engage in voter fraud herself. And guess what? She got caught.
Voter fraud's a real problem in the country.
Yeah, I know all about it.
Have you ever seen any voter fraud?
Yeah, me, I did it.
You committed voter fraud? What'd you do?
Voted twice for Trump.
Really?
4 years ago, yes.
Did you get in trouble for that?
Yeah, I'm still on probation for it.
Really?
Yeah. Now, if I voted for Hillary, I would've got a gold medal.
But you voted for Trump twice.
Yes, I did, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I learned the hard way not to do it.
But did you wear a mustache or anything?
No, I was two different places. I went to a different place. A different time. I voted one time, like maybe a couple weeks later, trying to vote at another place, someplace else.
I don't know, I'm having like a big crisis because I honestly thought it was like libs that were doing it.
Yeah.
Now remember, not too long ago, Donald Trump himself encouraged his supporters to commit election fraud, voter fraud. Let's watch.
On your ballots, if you get the unsolicited ballots, send it in and then go make sure it counted. And if it doesn't tabulate, you vote. You just vote. And then if they tabulate it very late, which they shouldn't be doing, they'll see you voted and so it won't count. So send it in early and then go and vote. And if it's not tabulated, you vote.
Trump administration officials and people working on his campaign later had to come out and tell people, please don't do that. That's breaking the law. Don't do it. So look, go ahead.
Yeah, I was mostly okay with what he said there. Like there are other versions where he wasn't quite as nuanced. I thought that was okay. So for instance, I requested a mail-in ballot and it just never came. So I went and voted early in person, hypothetically. That's not quite what he's saying, but
no,
you
it's
do
not
have to
what
have
he's saying at
backup
all.
plans.
He's saying vote by mail and then go vote in person.
Yeah, but he's saying if it's not tabulated or whatever, like you can check online and see whether it's been counted. Because look, at the end of the day, you can't vote twice in that way. 2 votes are not going to register. That's just not the way that it works. That woman, for like the things people say without thinking, she said, if I'd voted for Hillary, I would have gotten a gold medal. Okay, but like millions and millions of people did vote for Hillary. Did they get gold medals? Why say stupid things? I don't understand people most of the time. Do I get something off of Joe Biden? I don't know. Do I get something chromed maybe? He's pretty cool. I don't know. The whole
Dragon
thing is,
Daddy breathing fire.
Continue. I don't know.
It's getting hot in here though.
I find so much of this so frustrating, the entire process. And I know that there is so much whataboutism and both sidesism going on around, like, oh, the libs are mad that they're claiming there was voter fraud. Well, what about 2016? Like, yes, people were frustrated with the outcome of 2016, and some people thought that things had happened that dishonestly influenced people's votes. But generally, there were no claims that actual vote totals were being changed or manipulated or fake ballots were coming up or anything like that. And by the way, we can have a disagreement about to what extent people's votes are being influenced by misinformation or whatever, but everybody knows that it is happening in some ways in multiple different directions from multiple different sources. That is not what is being said to have happened here. And in any event, Hillary Clinton conceded the day after. The media called the election. They started calling him president-elect. This is nothing like 2016 in every possible way. And all the right-wing blowhards who are talking about how the media is being mean to Trump and how dare they call Joe Biden president-elect and everything, they were using those terms back in 2016, far closer to the election than we are currently now. It's not the same thing in any way.
I'm a damn lib from our member section says, and I totally agree with you. The fact that they never find any fraud has increased my faith in our process. And to be clear, there are a few instances where they do find fraud. And then the people committing the fraud get prosecuted, which is how the system is supposed to work. That's the right way or the right outcome of a system that has some level of integrity. Now, don't get me wrong, there are certain forms of suppression, voter suppression. Our system is set up in a way that it's incredibly difficult for third-party candidates to even get on ballots. I think that there are serious flaws that are intentionally set up in our electoral process, but that's very different from people voting twice or election officials changing votes. There's no evidence of that happening. There's no widespread evidence of that happening on a widespread, in a widespread way. And so, yes, John, final
just a
thoughts.
little bit. And by the way, we're just, I guess we're not even, going forward, we'll talk about voter suppression as a country and everything, but like, we're just accepting some of the voter suppression measures that were put into place. Like Abbott is talking about wanting to find voter fraud. We will never know how many votes didn't get cast because of the one ballot drop-off place thing. Would it have been enough to switch the state? Almost certainly not, but there would have been more votes. The Supreme Court, in the cases where they stopped late arriving but pre-election day postmarked ballots from being counted, in some states they allowed it, in some states they didn't. Like I think Wisconsin might be one where they didn't allow it. Biden hypothetically would be up by more votes. Well, those are never going to be counted now. Can anyone watching this, if you're a conservative, can you come up with a single instance in which something was done by a state legislature, by a governor, by a state Supreme Court, or by the Supreme Court that had the effect of reducing the number of Republican ballots that were cast? No, you can't. In any state or across the country at large, all of these measures increased participation. You might think that it's biased in a way that increases Democrats more, or that simply increasing the vote is somehow better for Democrats. But overall, you cannot deny that the Democrats were in favor of more voting. The Republicans did everything they could to limit it. The question is, or I guess hypothetically is, were they successful enough in cutting down the ballots to actually win? And clearly they weren't, but that was the goal. Yeah. And now they're hoping to do it after the fact.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.